What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to episode 5 of the Academy. And today, we're back once more. Of course, there wasn't an episode of the Academy earlier on in the season. I've noticed with this series, its popularity is a little bit wavering. So, if you want to continue seeing this kind of stuff, let me know, in the comments, leave a like, all that good stuff. And yeah, let's talk about the new intakes, because of course, this is season 3 at Sochaux. And, well, we have had some new players come in. And, well, one thing that I will start off by saying is that this year, I've been a lot harsher. In the last few years, I've always kind of just asked my assistant, sign whoever you think is worth signing. This year, no, I've released the players who I didn't think were good enough for the team. I've released the players who I didn't think were good enough. And, well, offered contracts to those that I did think were worth it. As a result, our team is a lot more streamlined. Unfortunately, intake day was just over a week ago, so I can't find the news item anymore. I was going to show you the fact we released a load of players. It happened, it was harsh, but we have left ourselves with some fairly good players who, if we look at here, you can see these 8 or 7, I can't count, it's 7 lucky players are the players who I've deemed good enough to be deserving of a chance in our under-19s this year. So we're going to go through them. We're going to set up their training as well. We'll start with the first guy, Noel. I mean, it's Christmas time, and, well, this guy knows it's Christmas. You can see here, looks like a pretty good goalkeeper. His distribution's a little bit lacking. Mentals are fairly good. That is largely made up because of his good determination. In terms of goalkeepers, I feel like the training is almost kind of most limited with them in terms of what you need to or want to do. I think we're going to go with something like this. You can see his first touch and anticipation, 2 glaring weaknesses in his game, but because his distribution isn't great, that could also do with some general work. I feel like at this point for Noel, it's probably not worth focusing on anything in particular, instead just training him as a goalkeeper and seeing where he's perhaps lacking in a year or two's time. Hopefully he will be able to find a little bit of first team football in our under-19s over the next few years. The next player we have, definitely the pick of the bunch, a player who's considered by our staff the hot prospect going forward. This guy looks really good as well, Daniel Agunde. You can see here, or Agudi, answers on a postcard. You can see here, 15 years old, 7 pros, 6 cons, really good potential. Looks like already a fantastic advanced forward, really. He's really well suited to this role. He's left-footed, fairly ambitious personality, is really good for his development. Ambition is one of the key factors in a player development during training, of course. His determination isn't too bad either. If you look at his reports, lack of consistency is a problem. But no, I'm really excited about this guy, the kind of player who we're definitely going to be keeping tabs on. We've not really had a striker come through our youth academy yet. We've had players like Chevalier, we've got Gautier, Valade. There's a few good players in our reserve team and in our first team, but not as strikers. Ducasse, of course, signed from Bastia. So maybe this guy can be our own homegrown, superstar striker. That would be the dream, certainly. With his training, I feel like the most logical thing is to train him as an advanced forward for now. I think longer term, he might be the kind of player who we look to train as a complete forward, just to help with his physicals as a whole and also his mentals as a whole. The more I look at it, the more I'm thinking, actually, I think we might just train him outright as a complete forward, because he is just very well suited to play in this role. He's just a very good striker, so I think we'll go with that. In terms of actual focus, I'm going to focus on his quickness for now, which might seem a little odd, but his quickness is good, but it could be better. His jumping, reach and heading are a little lacking. He's never going to be absolutely amazing in the air, and I'd quite like to just make him that little bit faster if we can. You can see here he is only 15, and he's a young 15 as well. So a very, very exciting player to have, of course, at the club. Anyway, the next player that we're going to move on to is this guy, Mathis, Bertrand. This guy, good potential, current ability, very lacking. The kind of player who we're kind of taking a punt on. Just at a glance, he's the kind of player I look at and think, probably not going to develop into the kind of player I need, or, well, he could develop into the player I need, but he's unlikely to. His physicals are really, really poor. As a result, we're going to train him as a roaming playmaker, I think, really try and excel his physicals as a whole. And also help with some of the mentals he's also lacking in, and well, the technicals as well. He's lacking in a lot of areas, but with the potential he's got, if he can train hard and use that fairly professional personality well, he could still turn out to be a very, very good player for us longer term. Dumont, one of the worst players, I guess, in this batch of players who we have decided to keep on, but certainly not a bad centre back by any means. I definitely see him as a centre back as well. we could train him as a defensive centre-back just to work on the kind of simple things, but I feel like his mentals need some love as well. His acceleration would be good to improve. His jumping reaches are already very strong. I think you know what I'm going to do by now. Immediately training that quickness. I feel like as a benchmark, I want to be aiming for every player in the first team to have quickness and acceleration of at least kind of 13 or 14. I, in Football Manager, tend to play a very fast style of play, usually. I guess that's been a little bit different here at Sochaux so far. But I do feel like it's very important for players to have their edge of pace about them. It can really make the difference in games. Anyway, we go from Dumont to Dumont. And as you can see here, we've got Jean Dumont here, who looks very good, very determined player. Physicals are good in terms of pace, is kind of actual physicals. In terms of the stamina, strength, agility and balance are a little lacking. In terms of this guy, you can see quite flexible, can play a lot of different positions. I feel like he could be a very good winger actually going forward. He's right-footed, and I think, at least for now, we're going to train him to play advance forward. Sorry, not advance forward, attacking winger on the right, and just see if he can improve in a few of these areas. It's kind of a limited role. Longer term, we might look to train him as an inside forward just to kind of, fill out some of these mentals, and also stuff like his crossing would be good to improve. I feel like we've instantly got to focus on his crossing as well. 4 crossing is absolutely awful. And actually, the more I look at it, the more I'm thinking maybe inside forward is just the way to go here. It gives a little bit of TLC to a few other attributes. It means his work rate won't get the same attention, but that's already fairly good for him. His physicals are severely lacking, however, so that's going to be something we have to look into longer term, I feel like. Anyway, the next player we have, Furtado. You can see here, 14 years old. Looks like a good little centre mid, not necessarily a great little centre mid, but yeah, you can see here his lack of consistency, his inability to jump off the ground. A little bit of a concern, however. But I think for him, we're just going to train him to play box-to-box midfielder. His physicals are very, very lacking in terms of natural fitness, in terms of stamina and strength. His pace could do with being a little bit better. He's just lacking in so many little areas that we just need to give him the most well-rounded training plan we can. And I feel like to do that, the best bet is going to be to have light training on quickness, just to hopefully improve his pace a little bit over time, but to train him in a box-to-box role so he can just improve everything, because he's just got a long way to go. Anyway, the last player we have here, Colin. I'm not going to try saying your last name, Colin. I'm sorry. Again, looks okay. He looks like a very, very limited player. He's got some good potential, however. I think for him, we're going to train him as a right midfielder on inverted winger. Again, this just shows a lot of TLC to a lot of different attributes. His physicals are a massive concern for me, and actually, the more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm thinking maybe I should try and find something that is going to, well, help with those physicals a little bit, because they're not great. The issue is there aren't actually that many... Yeah, you can see here wide kind of role trainings that actually show a lot of attention to the kind of physicals. With a centre mid, it's kind of easy just to stick them on box to box if you want their physicals to get some TLC. If you're looking at a striker, sometimes complete forward can be very good. It's always slightly different with the wide roles. You can see there really isn't that much there. I think we're going to go with inverted winger for now, because I feel like his technicals need to be better rounded, as do his mentals, and hopefully he can continue to develop there. In terms of other stuff, his stamina is really, really poor, so that's definitely going to be a focus of his training. 5 stamina is really bad. He only has 3 strength and 1 jumping reach, so I can only assume he's really, really small. If we look here, yeah, 157 centimetres. He's not particularly big, bless him, Colin, but hopefully he can grow, because he is only 14. So anyway, there's some of the players that we've got who have come in, who we've now set up the training for. In terms of players who are looking very good, there's a few of them, and well, you can see them here. Let's go through some of the players who really have stood out so far. Of course, the first player here, Valentin Gauthier, a player who was our best kind of youth intake player last year at this time. Last year, he really hasn't improved that much as a player, if I'm honest. I was hoping he'd improve a little bit more. Unfortunately, he is still 15. We are beyond the registration window for this season. He's a player who I'd quite like to move into the first team next season, try and give some first team opportunities for. You can see he's already playing for France at under 19 level. Right now, we're training him as a complete wing-back, really trying to make him a well-rounded player, although it's not going that great thus far. We could probably turn up the intensity a little bit. He was complaining about training previously. Anyway, another player who's playing really well is Vasek. He's out on loan at the moment at Clermont, And, well, the striker here for the Czech Republic is looking extremely exciting. Really love the look of this guy. I feel like he's probably not going to be first team ready next season. I'd quite like to loan him to Clermont again if they want him. You can see here they are playing him very regularly. He's got 4 goals so far in 8 games. Really good return for a 17-year-old who's really making his first strides into regular first team football. We signed him for 600k earlier on this season. And yeah, definitely a player to keep an eye out on. Another player worth keeping an eye out on is Vlad here. A player who's improved a lot. Very similar to Gautier in a lot of ways. Unfortunate, really, in a way that they're both right backs. You know, you compare the two of them here. Vlad is the lesser of the two players, but he's also the player who's been improving significantly more. He's kind of been playing catch-up, although he is 2 years older. I think it's going to be interesting to monitor these two players. I think they could be good competition for one another. Certainly two players who might have spots in the first team, you know, longer term. But right now, Vlad really is improving a lot. He's really surpassing my expectations. He's been a surprise. And, well, speaking of surprises, Durang Machanga, it's a mouthful. Has been another one of those surprise packages. You can see a 19 years old player who we got 3 years ago. A player who I don't feel like I've ever really talked about. I don't feel like at the time he stood out to me as a great player, but he really has improved this year. You can see potential ability is good, current ability is very solid. His physicals are really good as a winger, although they could be a little more rounded, I guess. But right now you can see we're training him as an inverted winger, trying to improve him in a lot of different areas. We could actually focus on his technique just a little bit, just to see how he gets on there. But no, he's just a player who, well, if we just click, you know, a few of the attributes you might consider key to this kind of player, they've just been improving, and it's been pretty impressive. You know, he went from being a very average player a few years ago to being a player now who, I don't know, might still have an outside chance of breaking into the first team. I still feel like in terms of his technicals and his attacking attributes, they're perhaps a little too weak. But if we can get him a loan either this year or, you know, certainly next season, he's a player who could definitely, I think, continue to improve with regular first team football and maybe forge a way into the first team. Nessa Carlo, of course, out on loan at Antwerp. Very good player, this guy. Was here when we first joined the club. I don't think he's got a spot in the first team going forward, particularly with the other right backs we've got. It's kind of become a stack area of the team, but right now he's playing for Antwerp, continuing to develop, which is good. Still got 3 years on his contract. If he can continue to do well, who knows? He could still find a way into the first team. Of course, we already talked about Agude, the new striker, very exciting prospect, one of the best players in our under-19s. Beyond him, we've got Guigen here, who looks like a very good centre-back indeed. You can see here, 14 leadership, fairly professional personality. Part of me was like, oh, maybe this guy could be the captain of the club in a few years' time. 16 years old now. He's been at the club 3 years, and he's looking like a very good centre-back. He's not particularly good as a ball-playing centre-back, but he has those core three. You know, he has the heading, marking, and tackling. If you can continue to improve them, he's going to be great. His physicals are absolutely superb. His mentals are very solid for a player who's only 16. It's really just down to, can he improve his jumping reach perhaps just a little bit, and can he improve that tackling, marking, and heading? You can see right now we're focusing on his strength. I wanted to improve it. It was down at 5.0. It's now at 10.0. That kind of improvement is really, really impressive to see and exciting to see over a 2-year period. And, well, hopefully it can continue in a lot more areas. He's been just performing superbly in training. Anyway, a few more players we'll go through super quickly. Assumption Mohammed continuing to look like a good player. Generated at the club 2 years ago now. Has been tearing it up, you can see, at the under-19 level. 9 goals for him in that. And also 4 goals in the Reserve League, which is really good to see. You can see, looking at our team, we're playing in the under-19 National League Group B. Right now, we are only behind Lyon, which is really exciting to see with 6 games left of the season. We are being very, very competitive here, and you can see Assumption Mohammed and Vasek, 2 of the top goal scorers in this competition. And, well, in terms of average ratings, Manjek has been actually the surprise package here, a player who could improve a little bit, but has been performing very well at centre-back when we've called upon him in 14 games in this league. It's been, you know, really, really impressive there, really. Anyway, let's go through just a few more players super quickly who are definitely worth keeping an eye out in the under-19s, because, of course, there are more players in the under-20s. Gregory Hubert could still become a very good player, a player who I had doubts about, but he's proven me wrong. He's improved a hell of a lot over the last year or two, continuing to look solid, still has very good potential. Consistency, still a concern, but a good player for Ligue 2 sides at this point. Yeah, hopefully he can just continue to develop, and really it just feels like we've got a golden generation of fullbacks coming coming through at the moment, which is kind of interesting to see. We've got Noel here, who is still doing well. His finishing used to be rubbish. It was at 1.0. It's now at 7.2. That is the difference that focusing on something can make. It's really impressive to see this from this guy. He is 19. I don't think he's ever going to fulfill his potential, unfortunately, but we're going to keep him at the club for at least the next few years, I feel like, because he could still improve. He could still become the player that maybe he was tipped to be at one point. Beyond him, a few other good players. Ovre was one of the big hot prospects of the last intake that we had. Continuing to develop. His current ability still isn't the best, but he has potential. He's continuing to improve. You know, we've seen with a lot of these players, the attribute growth over 2 or 3 years has been superb. And as we continue to improve both the youth facilities, the training facilities, the junior coaching budget, hopefully this is all going to have a big knock-on effect on all these youngsters going forward. I mean, we're in a really exciting position here when you look at just the youth team as a whole, we are stacked, and so many of these players are young French players as well, and that is just super exciting to see. And hopefully over the next few years we're going to continue to see some of these names that you see before you break into the first team. That's certainly the long-term ambition here at Sochaux. Beyond that under-19 team, there are players in the reserves who are continuing to do well. You'll notice there is a little bit of an overlap here in terms of players who appear in both teams. The reason for that being is they may be in the reserve team and then set to be available for the under-19 squad. So to talk about a few players who one in the under-19s, we have here, of course, Ali, the Romanian international on loan at Cannes this year. He's done quite well, 15 appearances so far. The average rating, not the best. But he's 18, he's still finding his feet. We signed him for £1.5 million at the start of the year. Really excited to see this guy continue to improve. Fairly professional personality, he's great. His physicals just as a whole are superb. Has the holy trinity of heading, marking and tackling. His passing is not that bad either, really, as a ball-playing centre-back. And his mentals, where he needs them to be good, are really great. So a player who definitely will be in the first team, I feel like, in years to come. Of course, we have Le Bombe, who we signed again at the start of this year. Another centre-back, a French player we signed from, well, you can see here, Marseille for 1.2 million. Had a few appearances in the first team. He's not done that great. Back in the reserve team now just to try and get him regular football. I'm hoping that longer term, we might be able to secure a loan for this guy to either be a key player in a Ligue 2 side or be a first-team regular in a Ligue 1 side. That would be kind of where I want to see this guy in the next 6 or 7 months, going into next season. Because he's definitely got the potential to play that kind of role in a team. Anyway, another player that we signed this year, Austin Ibrahim, the Nigerian international, 5 goals in 6 games. Probably needs to go out on loan, really, to continue to play in the national team for Nigeria. You can see we signed him from Kano Pillars for 80k. He got 20 goals in 34 games for them. He looks really, really exciting. Superb in the air. A little bit different to the other strikers we've got. We've got a lot of strikers who aren't that prominent in the air and are very good when it comes to their pace. This guy, a slightly different proposition, very good physicals, very good kind of in the air. In terms of his actual attacking stuff, composure off the ball and finishing, absolutely great there. His jumping reach and heading are superb. Strength is good. I'm excited for this guy. He just offers us something very, very different. Right now, we're just training him as an advanced forward, continuing to improve what he's good at. And yeah, keep an eye out for him because he could be a player who breaks into the first team in the next few years. A few more players we'll go through really quickly. James Ishimwe, the Ugandan, a player that we signed at the start of the year from AAB. Just been playing in the reserves a little bit. I'd love to get him a loan in the next kind of, well, very soon, really. You can see he's got the mentals, he's got good physicals, he's capped at international level fairly frequently. A player who I just feel like is good to go out on loan. I feel like with a lot of players, and a question that I've been getting a lot is, Jack, when do you know a player's right to go out on loan? When is that critical moment? For me, it's the moment where a player has a good personality, is good enough to play regular first-team football at a high level, and additionally, is kind of perhaps doesn't have any weaknesses that you identified earlier. So a player like Vasek, who I've sent out on loan, his only real weakness is his determination, as far as I'm concerned. As a striker, he looks like a very good striker. His off the ball could certainly improve, but everything else is great about him. Because he's got a fairly professional personality, because he's good enough to play at the Ligue 2 level, I don't see a value in keeping him in the reserve team other than to focus on that off the ball that I'd quite like to see improve. So with this kind of player, get him out on loan, get him first team football. He has the personality of fairly professional to try and make this loan work for him. And he's the kind of player who is just, ready-made to go out on loan. Whereas you look at someone like, say, Machangama here, He's a good player. He's not really got ambition or professionality in his game, although he's very, very determined. And I feel like because of the physicals that he's lacking, or sorry, not the physicals, the technicals and stuff that he's lacking, and the fact we're training him as an inverted winger to cover these, he's better served staying at the club. If he was to go out on loan, it's very unlikely that the AI would want to train him as an inverted winger. And as a result, we wouldn't see improvements to stuff like his finishing. It'd be a lot more likely that they would just train him as a winger. And there'd be a few key areas that I think are important to his development that are just ignored as a result of him not being trained in this role. Stuff like his vision, very important as well, I feel like, for a midfielder to be able to see a pass. Anyway, let's go through just a few more players super quickly. Players who we need to keep an eye on. First one here, Mahir Kamal Mehmet, of course. This guy was signed at the start of the year from a random German team. I feel like I talked about him in an episode. If I didn't, I found him through just looking through the under-21 teams at international level. He was playing for Turkey. He had 8 goals in 6 games. He's actually now declared himself for Germany's under-20 side, so he's turned his back on Turkish football. Looks like a very, very good striker with this guy. Training him as a complete forward, you can see, has the determination of 20, absolutely superb. His physicals are all distinctly average, so training him as a complete forward shows a lot of attention to all of these, and we'll hopefully see these continue to improve this year. And yeah, he's another player who has very good potential, hopefully can break into the first team. You can see a lot of other players here out on loan. Leandro Pereira, you can see ambitious personality again. Very good player, playing regular first team football in Ligue 2, which is great to see, although it's not been put in the best performances as of late. Other players, Sunday Dumaka. This guy, the reason I loaned out him is because he doesn't really have too many weaknesses in his game. I'd quite like to see his tackling improve, of course, but with the exception of that, he looks very good. And additionally, we're very stacked in the centre-back position, so he wouldn't even be getting regular first team football as a centre-back in the reserve team, whereas we've got him out on loan. He's playing in the top flight of Belgium, and whilst he isn't putting in the best average ratings, that regular first-team football is only going to help his development. Max Courtier here, another player out on loan. Again, looks like a very, very good player, this guy, 19 years old. Still a little bit of potential to try and fulfill in this guy. Got him out on loan. He's playing in the top flight of Belgium again. Not putting in the best average ratings, but the regular first-team football is just going to help his development. And actually, the more I look through this, the more I realise there's actually quite a few players out on loan. We are getting to the stage now where I'm starting to phase out the players who were here when I first came who just aren't good enough now. The Sochaux Academy has some very good players when you first take over the club, but the issue is those players are very good players. They're probably not top half League players, the kind of players who are ever going to play for us now because of the position we find ourselves in as a club. As a result, you've got players like Kuntz, Daham, Robinet, even Lamboli here, who are all players who I will probably just let go at the end of their contracts. You can see a fair few of them expiring at the end of this season, a few slightly further ahead. I may try and cash in on a few of them, but the kind of sad reality with these players is they're just not good enough. And I've loaned them out because I want to ensure that the regular reserve team football is going to, these younger players here. I mean, look at the potential we've got in this academy. There are so many exciting players. And whilst I have brought in a few players from abroad, Vasek from Czech Republic, Ali from Romania, there's still a core of French players in this team ready and raring to go to hopefully break into the first team going forward. I feel like the big challenge with a lot of these players is actually going to be reaching their potential. We've got a lot of players with high potential here. The amount that actually have high ability is a little bit different, which is going to be a challenge for us. But hopefully we can overcome that in the coming years. Anyway, in the first team, there has been a few little kind of successes in terms of, players breaking through. Obviously, Chevalier has been playing regular first-team football this year at Ligue 1 level, averaging a 7.11 average rating. Currently training him as a roaming playmaker because we want to really round off his game as much as possible. Of course, the ongoing battle with him has been his off-the-ball and his pace. His off-the-ball has continued to improve. It was at 6 when he first joined us. It's now at 7.8, of course. That over the course of the last 2 seasons, that development. And in terms of his acceleration and pace, you can see here his pace was 9.4, acceleration 12.4. Both of those have improved a little bit. Pace is always something that is difficult to improve. I guess how fast a player runs is largely genetic when you think about it. And so whilst you can train kind of the running technique as a whole, I feel like there's still, ground that needs to be made up here, and hopefully he can continue to improve and, avoid injury. Of course, that is the long-going concern with Chevalier, is that the engineer, what am I talking about? The engineer, because I've got Chevalier in my mind. The injury proneness is always going to be a concern for him. And it is going to stifle his development if he ever gets a long-term injury. Of course, Ricardo Martin playing in the first team, which is great to see. Been one of the big standout performers this year. Sunday West doing well. Lacroix not played so much this year, but still a very good backup centre-back for us to have. Perhaps falls into that category of players who, like the players in my reserve teams, very good kind of young prospect when you first take over here at Sochaux. But given where it feels like the club's going at this moment in time, as we currently sit, well, 4th in the league, maybe he's just not going to be quite good enough, unfortunately. But anyway, that was another quick recap of what's going on in terms of the young players. Lots of exciting young talent. Let me know, are there any players here that you think I should be paying more attention to that I kind of glanced over? If you've enjoyed today's video, obviously leave a like on it. As I said, this series has been getting a little bit of a mixed response as of late. I understand some people absolutely love this detail. Some people just find it really boring. I hope there's some useful little bits of information. If you have any questions with regards to anything I've talked about, let me know down in the comments. I'll try and get back to you with any answers that I have. And that's going to wrap things up from me. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. And it is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.